Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
India Today Mood of the Nation poll has come out and results are so startling that I thought that's a good thing for us to look at today and try and declutter this incredible phenomenon of Narendra Modi for you. So what does this poll show? This poll shows that Narendra Modi now has 78% affirmative rating. 78% is very remarkable for India. It's his highest ever, and he has finished his 6 years in power. In his 7th year, it's his highest ever. This tops his earlier highest, which was January 2017, 3 years ago, by a good 9 percentage points. Not 9%, 9 percentage points, from 69% to 78%. Again, there are startling findings there that 66% of respondents think already that he is the best choice to be India's next Prime Minister, that is 2024 on, although 2024 is still almost 4 years away. Again, 44% think he is India's best Prime Minister ever. And if you see the rest, the next would be Indira Gandhi, Vajpayee. They are all in low double figures or in single figures. So this is an unbelievable phenomenon that you see in the form of Narendra Modi, the political phenomenon. Now, we look at some aspects of this poll and the results and also try and delve into the reasons and see what lessons we can draw from it. But before that, a few qualifications and health warnings. 2 health warnings to begin with. Number 1, that this is a small poll in the sense that Mood of the Nation polls are 12,000, a sample of about 12,000. This one is just over 12,000, maybe 12,050 or something. Compared to this, opinion polls in elections have several lakhs, almost 500,000 and above respondents. So what is 7.5 lakhs, say in a general election, is now only 12,000. That is something to remember. But at the same time, further qualification that all Mood of the Nation polls besides election polls are of this size. So when you are comparing apples with apples or oranges with oranges or bananas with bananas. Second, usually these polls are done face to face. So pollsters would go and talk to these respondents face to face. But now, because it's the COVID time, these have been done on the phone. So I would expect, knowing how reputed the pollsters are, that they've taken all the precautions and they've maintained all the necessary hygiene. But remember that this poll was done on the phone. And third qualification, which I must put in all fairness, is that despite these health warnings, we have to remember, and I can say this for sure, that India Today Group and Arun Puri will not fix the poll. I know that they are under attack, particularly from pro-Congress people or Modi critics, that they fix this poll. I don't think, in fact, I'm quite sure they will not deliberately fix a poll. Having said that, you should know the limitations of a poll like this. Having said that, and also knowing that other polls were also of the same size, we have to look at these remarkable findings. So first, let me just run through some of these findings. I told you 78% affirmative for Modi, 66% think he'll be the best next Prime Minister, 44% think he's the best Prime Minister India has ever had, and the next 7 don't add up to 44%. So it is that kind of a sway, that kind of a personality, popularity or cult or whatever you call it. Now, there are 2 important numbers that I noticed as I run through this poll, and I am sharing the entire India Today cover story with you. Courtesy India Today, my friend Raj Chengappa, who's the editorial director of India Today, takes the trouble of sending his entire issue electronically to some of us now because it's difficult to get the hard copy, printed copy. So you can see that. But when I see that entire range of data, 2 figures stick out in my head, and those are 75% and 45%. Now, what is 45%? 45% on every parameter are people who think Narendra Modi can do nothing wrong, who generally think that he's outstanding with everything. What is 75%? 75% is if you add those who think he's done outstandingly and those who think he's done well or outstandingly and well, add those two, it comes to about 75% or thereabouts. It goes between 72 and 78. Quite remarkable. And then a third big figure, if you add to this those who think that his performance is average, not negative, it comes to an average of 95%. Now that is really incredible. And whatever the qualifications, this poll is telling you something that if you so wish, you can ignore or you can poo-poo it, but this is the reality. So we have to see where this is coming from. Now, and there are many contradictions there, but those are contradictions of public opinion. 70% of Indians, when they are asked what is the biggest problem in India right now, they say coronavirus pandemic is the biggest problem in India right now. Now, we also know, and you will see that tweet from Eric Topol, who's an internationally known expert on health and medical sciences, and whose Twitter handle is among the most credible Twitter handles to follow on your coronavirus updates. He shows that even America has bent the curve, Brazil has bent the curve, but India is going straight up like this. And he says that, look, India is going into very worrying territory. And yet, while Indian people seem to know it, so 70% of them say coronavirus is the biggest threat. How many think Modi's handling of coronavirus has been very good? 70% think Modi's handling of coronavirus has been very good. In fact, 77%. So once again, if you break it down, 29% think that his handling of coronavirus has been outstanding. 48% think it's been good. So 48 and 29, 77. Then you add 18% who think it's average. So you come to 95, which means only 5% think that his handling of coronavirus pandemic has been poor. That despite the fact that India's graph is going up like that. Then the economy. We know that India's economy is in a tailspin. India's heading for a negative growth this year, but it's not as if this has just happened after the pandemic. India's economy has been in a tailspin since 2016-17. Once Narendra Modi punctured the tires in the vehicle of his own economy with his ill thought out, and I've said this many times and I'll say it again, shambolic demonetization. So India's economy has been declining and everybody can feel it. Yet, what is the rating on his economic handling? 24% say outstanding, 48% say good. So again, you get into that figure of that ballpark of 75%. This adds up to 72%. And add to this 21% who say it's average. You add all that, you come to 93%. So come to the 95% ballpark. Only 6% say it's poor. Now, economic challenge arising from coronavirus pandemic. Again, how do people rate him? 33% say outstanding. 48% say good. Add it up, 71. So you come in that 75 ballpark. Add to this 22% average. How much does it add up to? 93. So once again, you are in that 95% ballpark, and only 6% think it's been poor, 1% are undecided. So you are there. That means people who are really negative on him are about 5 to 6%. Then you go ahead and look at other things. You would think that this Chinese challenge, obviously there are problems in Ladakh and elsewhere. Narendra Modi had tried very hard and sort of expansively to reach out to Xi Jinping with many summits, walking hand in hand, getting smiling pictures, but this has gone wrong. How does it rub off on Narendra Modi? So if you look at Narendra Modi's rating on this, 69%. So again, you're in the same ballpark of about 70. 69% think his handling of China has been good. But if you add to that the number of those who think it's been fair, that's 15%, that's 84%. That is as remarkable as it can be. And then if you come to the question of did Modi government conceal information on what's happening on the borders with China, and you would think with all these exposés, all these claims, satellite pictures, a lot of people believe that. Only 9% believe that his government concealed information in China. No, once again, you can find 100 flaws with the sampling, with the methodology, but these figures, they are so consistent that they are telling you something. Of course, another question we don't know is whether the pollsters ask these respondents who they voted for the last time, because this sample I expect to represent more fairly people's voting choices the last time, because if you just reach out to BJP voters by some unscientific polling, then you will get skewed results. But I don't think so. I think those are good pollsters. They will not do such a thing. Then you have some other questions about Congress. How many people think Congress is on the way to destruction? 47%. Once again, remember that ballpark of 45. So the percentage of people who think that Modi has done everything right, that percentage also thinks that Congress is in a tailspin. Interestingly, 38% still think Congress will recover. Then how many people think that Rahul Gandhi's criticism of Narendra Modi over China, etc., is fair, and how many think it's a bad idea? 59% think it's a bad idea, he should not be doing it. Only 27% agree with it. And then a question, opposition criticism of Modi government on coronavirus, is that fair or is it critical for the heck of it? 53% say it is critical for the heck of it. So once again, these figures are telling you something. Then you go on a little bit to the side on China, because the lessons we learn from this poll will also be drawn from this. On China, 90% support the economic boycott of China. 90%. That is remarkable. Xi Jinping should be watching it. See, in no time, he has turned on, generally 1.25 billion people to be his country's enemies. He's lost them, he's lost his country, their goodwill. So 90% say the boycott's fine, 91% say the ban on Chinese apps and Chinese bidding for Indian contracts is a good idea. 67% say that they are willing to pay more for their purchases if Chinese imports are stopped. 69%, as I told you, believe that Narendra Modi government has given a fitting response to China. As I told you, 69 plus 15 fair, so it's 84. Now, once again, are people going through a suspension of disbelief? 48% are reporting that they are better off than they were before Modi. Now, it's quite remarkable given the fact that in the same poll, 63% are saying that they've suffered a loss of income, and yet 43% say they are better off. You want to again check it for a comparison? 2 years back, people who said they were better off was not even 40%. So in fact, instead of declining, this has gone up. And see what's happened to Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. Modi versus Rahul Gandhi today are 66 and 8. That means 66% people think that Modi is a better leader, 8% think Rahul Gandhi is a better leader. 1.5 years back, in January 2019, what was the situation? That was the closest Rahul Gandhi came to Modi. It was 46 Modi, it was 34 Rahul. So now Modi has gone from 46 to 66, Rahul has gone from 34 to 8. Between January 17 and 19, January 19, those 2 years, Rahul went up from 10 to 34% affirmative rating. Modi went down to 65 to 46% affirmative rating. Now, Modi has gone from 46, he's made a recovery to 66. Rahul Gandhi is in a free fall from 34 to 8. Again, this is something that you cannot overlook. And then other interesting things. Was the lockdown a good idea? Was it well implemented? Now, 34% say yes, it was a good idea. 38% say good idea, could be done better. Add 38 and 34, it comes to 72%. Now, when you look at all this data, you might say, oh, people of India are nuts. Or you might say the polls are all wrong or fixed. I can pretty much guarantee to you the poll will not be fixed. It can be flawed, but not fixed. And also, these polls take place twice a year and they generally have a high rating. So what are the lessons, what are the analytical points that we can find from this clutter of data? So number one, that India is now seeing a kind of bhakti cult. In my writings, I never call anybody a Modi Bhakt or any of the labels that are put, but there is a phenomenon of bhakti cult, which you see now growing around a lot of these populist leaders around the world. See America, for example. Donald Trump looks like he's on his knees, he's going to lose, but his affirmative rating is still more or less firm at 40%. That is bhakti. So these are bhakti cults. Similar things will apply in different ways to, say, Bolsonaro, Erdogan as well. So the loyalists, the base stays with you no matter what happens. The difference between America and India is that India is first past the post. So 40 plus sort of caught in your bhakti are good enough for you to sweep elections. America is a two-party system, so 40% is not good enough. People in the middle have to come and vote for you to get you close to that 50% mark. But in India, there is no such problem. Second thing is, and this is very important, that much more than religion, nationalism is BJP's strong point. It is the BJP's winning ticket. Now, you can argue and say, but Congress also did not give up national security, nationalism. But national security is Narendra Modi's winning ticket. You see this in all the responses on China. And you know, Indian history and Indian mind, India comes together when there is a national crisis, particularly if it's a national crisis which comes from an issue of security, and definitely it comes from overseas. 1962, the country came together, even though Nehru was in bad order, increasingly in bad order at that time. 1965, the whole country came together, although Shastri was relatively an unknown leader, and he is even now hailed as one of the greatest leaders in India. He was the prime minister for a very short while after Nehru's death, until his own death. Then 71, everybody came together. Mrs. Gandhi was hailed as Durga by Vajpayee or not, we don't know, because there is some issue with that. But she was hailed as Durga by the opposition as well. Kargil, that's a striking example. Kargil, as Kargil crisis began, the war began, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government lost its majority in parliament by one vote. You remember that? His government continued for several months until the war was concluded as a caretaker government. Yet, there was not a whimper of protest, complaint, dissidents, nothing. The whole country joined hands, and until the war was over and election could be held, politics was sort of put in suspended animation. That is the nature of Indian population, and that's what happens when a crisis like the China crisis now arises, because then people don't want to know political binaries. And essentially, the next point, the most credible organization in India, the most credible institution is the armed forces. So when you say the government is lying on Ladakh, and the government interprets it, or its spokesman interprets it to voters by saying, see, the opposition is casting aspersions on the armed forces. That approach has lose, lose, lose written all over it for the opposition. And that's precisely what happens. So nobody is willing to believe that. That's why only 9% believe that government is hiding facts here. Next point, again very important, is trust. Now, Narendra Modi, one strength of his personality, people say, oh, it's all Hinduism and Hindu bigotry. I'll come to that also. But it is trust. It's like when people are sick, they go to a hospital, they trust the doctor. Later, they might say the doctor messed up and something happened. But when you are in hospital, you trust those men and women in white, and you think they know their job, they'll do it well. So when you are in trouble, you trust a leader, particularly if it's a leader who you hold generally in high respect. And in Modi's case, some of this trust comes from the belief that he's selfless, there is nothing in it for him, he's working very hard, he's trying his best. He can go wrong, as he went wrong, say, with demonetization, but not because he was doing it for himself. That image is undented. Now, people say it's Teflon coated. I've always said that Teflon coating can go over time with usage. But this is a personality so far which is like it's cast in titanium. So it will take some doing for the opposition to challenge it. Next point is a very simple one. It's an instinctive point that when in adversity, stick by tried and tested. Don't make experiments in adversity. And people now see adversity, they see coronavirus, and this is the whole world has an economic problem. They see the Chinese at our borders. There is always a thought of terrorism. So better stick with the ones you have. It's once again like if you were in trouble in a hospital, as a patient, you really don't want to change hospitals just because somebody tells you another hospital will be better. Because you have your tubes and stuff and you are feeling secure where you are. So you, in a crisis or adversity, you stick with the tried and tested. And finally, and that is the lesson, that nationalism is stronger than religion as an electoral political proposition. Now, people say it's all temple, temple, temple. If you see in the same poll, what are the biggest successes of Modi government, according to this poll, the temple only gets 13% affirmative rating. So it's not as if 80% say the temple. In fact, that much individually does not even get an affirmative rating. The highest affirmative rating is for the changes in Kashmir, which is also not that high, it's 16%, but it's still the highest. And then if you see the responses on China, 50+% wanted to go to war with China, 90+% thinking if there is a war against China, India will win. Only 10% think there will be a stalemate. Almost nobody thinks India will lose. Now, obviously, countries should be confident, but this tells you that nationalism is a much stronger impulse for Indians than even religion. And I think the opposition and others, they sometimes make a big mistake by thinking that Modi's success or BJP's success is all about religion and Hindutva. They underestimate the power of nationalism and national security. And Modi's opponents have to think, how come they handed over this whole ticket, winning ticket of national security to Narendra Modi, and how they don't count. Now, if you look at all this data, you also see how Modi's opponents are attacking him. Or how BJP's opponents are attacking them. So Rahul Gandhi's approach, Rahul Gandhi is the preeminent leader of the opposition and the Congress. His approach is that I will attack only Modi. Now there are many in his party who say that they might be better off attacking others and sparing Modi for now, because Modi is too unassailable for them to attack. Rahul Gandhi, on the other hand, is defiant. He wants to attack Modi. So let me use a cricketing analogy here. It's like when the other side is batting and you see a night watchman and a premier batsman, or maybe a premier batsman batting with tail-enders. Then the opposing captain usually employs the strategy of giving a single to the set batsman or the premier batsman and exposing the tail-ender or the night watchman, so you can try and bowl at him and get him out. Some very audacious captains might say, no, forget it, I will bowl, I will first get Vivian Richards or Sachin Tendulkar or any of those characters out. That is what Rahul Gandhi is doing. So far, it is not working. Next, this tells you, and again, if you further dice the data, you see all over the country, Modi has a huge backing for his coronavirus handling. Only in the south, he gets 25% negative. And you see some more of those impulses coming from the south. So again, this gives you a very important, this underlines to you something that we all know, that we've been writing about, and that is proven by Narendra Modi's numbers in parliament, that he owns the Hindi heartland and the two big states of the west, that is Gujarat and Maharashtra. As long as he owns that, he gets a majority within those states. So he doesn't need many numbers from the south and the east. Although obviously he'll not mind getting more and he's trying, but he's not getting those. But what's happening is because those states are divided in terms of the political power there, it's not as if, say, the Congress party, like in the past, gets a majority of the votes or seats in the south. Those leaders are divided. So most of those leaders in the course of time are making a compact with the BJP and Narendra Modi. Not all, the left in Kerala will not do it, Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal will not do it, but others, say Jagan's party, YSRCP, say KCR, say Naveen Patnaik's party, BJD in Odisha, and depending on what happens or irrespective of what happens in Tamil Nadu, watch how the next Dravid government that comes to power there does. So this also underlines to you the current status of national politics and how this pie is then divided.